course, the biggest lesson for Canada is that we also have to have a hard look at ourselves, our economy, the way our federation works, our position in the world. This is really a moment where we have to have a very hard look at how we have been operating as a country.
The Globe and Mail took over $100,000 from the Chinese Communist Party in order to promote some of their propaganda and give them some glowing reviews, all the while claiming to be standing up for democracy, that conservatives, those are the bad guys trying to take it away. Got it. I'm Jasmine Lane. Subscribe, like, follow, share, comment your thoughts down below. And CSIS now says that mommy bloggers are a gateway to radical extremism. Yeah, this isn't satire. This is real news in 2025 in Canada. And my goodness, with CBC reporting on so much disdain and so much bias, you would think that Donald Trump actually invaded Canada. And after some announcements, there's some Canadians who almost wish he had. All that and more coming up today on Over Opinionated.
And so I think at the end of the day, we're still negotiating with these countries because we don't have deals with Mexico, no deals with Canada, India, no deal. Europe looks like it's negotiating something here. But the real big mama is China. And we're just starting the dance with those guys. That's a big deal, and no administration has ever tried to do all this at once. You get the headline number, but you don't have the details.
I mean, but even to your point, I mean, China is a big deal, but you know, the Times had an interesting statistic, courtesy of Goldman Sachs. 56% of U.S. imports, Canada, Mexico, South Korea, Brazil, and India, no deal yet with any of those countries, and the deadline is August 1st. It's coming.
No deal with Canada yet. Likely ever, given what Donald Trump has been saying as of late, which we will get to. But Mexico actually did have an extended deadline by 90 days. Donald Trump writes on Truth Social, "I have just concluded a telephone conversation with the president of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, which was very successful in that more and more we are getting to know and understand each other. The complexities of a deal with Mexico are somewhat different than other nations because of the problems and assets of the border. We have agreed to extend for a 90-day period. And as for Canada, well, here's what we got."
You know, something else that you had mentioned that we've certainly been covering on this program is another post that was put out by the U.S. president, and that was saying that it would be difficult to reach a trade agreement given the fact that we saw our prime minister make an announcement yesterday that Canada intends to recognize Palestinian statehood during the UN General Assembly.
There are so many things that are absolutely unhinged, unchecked, and just lacking any reality in them about Mark Carney's official position on behalf of Canadians. But one of the most shocking, to me at least, was that in his press release, he says that he had informed the head of the Palestinian Authority that Canada is going to be recognizing the state of Palestine at the UN General Assembly. Now, the head of the Palestinian Authority, by the way, is a man who is on screen right now. I'm not going to play audio. You can read the subtitles, and that is who he committed Canada to protect in this, which is so bizarre. And there's so many major cracks and major concerns in this one. As Pierre Poilievre highlights, the decision of the Carney Liberals to recognize a Palestinian state now without peace talks or a rejection of terror rewards violence, not peace. It legitimizes Hamas, a brutal T-word group that R-word, M-word, and took hostages on October 7th and still holds them today while they rule Gaza with fear, oppression, and brutality. Palestinians deserve to live free of Hamas and other T-word groups where the people can build their lives and raise their families living peacefully next to the Jewish state. This is the two-state solution conservatives support. And let's get a little bit more details as well on the head of the Palestinian Authority. His name's Mahmoud Abbas. Well, he's currently 20 years into a 4-year term. So they also pay stipends, by the way, to families of S-word, B-words, under the Pay for Slay program that does in fact exist. Plus, for a party of which is so inclusive and tolerant and ethical and equality based, well, it's a little hard to justify that when you just gave validity to a government in which being LGBTQ plus is illegal, by the way, and they also violate women's rights very frequently. In fact, Gaza has no protection for women, gays, or minorities, which is a point that is very much ignored by Western governments when they're in the middle of virtue signaling. Hypocrisy.
Well, first, I just have to say for the record, I disagree with the Prime Minister's announcement because I think it effectively rewards Hamas for its massacre. But having said that, you're quite right. The president flew to the United Kingdom, sat next to Prime Minister Starmer, whose number one issue in those meetings publicly, that according to number 10, Downing Street, was the Middle East conflict, Israel-Palestinian conflict. So clearly they spoke about it, and Prime Minister Starmer would have pre-briefed him or socialized with the president the idea that the UK would be making this announcement the day after the president left the UK. And yet there's no response to or anything impacting the 10% tariff agreement with the United Kingdom. So the fact that he singled out Canada on this, having given Britain a pass on it, so to speak, suggests, just reinforces the kind of at least rhetorical singling out of Canada that we have seen from the president for the past 9 months, going right back to the Mar-a-Lago 51st state joke, which became virtual Trump policy for several months. So there does appear to be a particular animosity towards Canada coming from this administration.
Now, of course, that is an analysis on the fact that other WEF infiltrated governments have also pushed for Palestinian statehood. The thing about that, though, is it's presented on the CBC as though this man, while he may have a lot of connections, knows the whole story. And, I'm not going to dance around it. I wouldn't be terribly surprised if Donald Trump actually had no idea that the EU or that the UK, was planning to call for Palestine to be a state. I wouldn't be surprised by that. But at the end of the day, even if he did know, the bottom line there is that they secured a deal. They secured something. Canada has not. In fact, what I have heard from many sources of mine across the border who are working in politics, it is that the US and Canada relations are horrible. And Donald Trump is absolutely furious with Canada.
You said you came to this decision independently, so you're saying you would have come to this without France or the UK making this decision?
No, look, I mean independent of the United States. But it does matter that others are moving. It does matter because it increases the prospect of success. But the core of the decision is taken on the principle that of self-determination and the rights of people to self-determination. We have long, Canada, speaking for Canada now, have long felt that this should come later in a process, and that our recognitions, other recognitions, the state of Palestine, should come at a point of maximum impact during a peace process.
Bro, what the hell are you even saying? Did that make sense to anybody at all?
We're now at a position, I'm sorry to repeat myself, where in our judgment and the judgment of others, is that the prospect of a Palestinian state is literally receding before our eyes, or being eroded before our eyes. And so the act of the intention to recognize, which is what we're saying today, and working with others to support a Palestinian state, possibility of a Palestinian state, reestablishes that.
As former MP Rick Perkins writes, shameful, you are rewarding terrorists who slaughtered 8 Canadians amongst the 1,200 on October 7th. Are you recognizing them as government or the Iranian-funded Hezbollah? What are the borders? Are you calling for 5.2 million Palestinians to resettle in Israel? This is an idiotic move, stupidly provocative with no practicality. Without these things determined, your statement is without substance. It is performative.
This intention is predicated on the Palestinian Authority's commitment to much-needed reforms, including commitments by the Palestinian Authority's president Abbas, to fundamentally reform its governance, to hold general elections in 2026 in which Hamas can play no part, and to demilitarize the Palestinian state. Canada will increase its efforts in supporting strong democratic governance in Palestine and the contributions of its people to a more peaceful and hopeful future. Canada reiterates that Hamas must immediately release all hostages taken in their horrific terrorist attack of October 7th, that Hamas must disarm, and that Hamas must play no role in the future governance of Palestine.
Oh, dear Mark, you can say that all you want, but in reality, it speaks a little bit differently because you are recognizing a state that is currently controlled by T-words. And if not them, then who? Oh, by a dictatorship, such as a boss of whom you've spoken with and you trust so much. And if we know anything about the people Mark Carney trusts, it's that you should run very far away from every single one of them. 20 years of a 4-year term, 20 years since an election, who still pays the families of T-words, who still pays the pay-for-slay program, as many like to call it, and has made zero credible steps towards democratic reform. And you think suddenly now he wants to? Yeah, no, this isn't about peace. This is about optics, legacy, and making sure that your bosses over at the WEF and every other shady, corrupt, disgusting association you're a part of to get you filthy rich with no accountability in the lives you destroy, the division you cause by being a part of those organizations. You just want them to give you some global applause and tell you you've done a good job, Mark.
Well, in a way, yes, because if the government holds to the conditions that there'll be a fully democratic, demilitarized Palestinian state with no involvement of Hamas in elections next year, I think the chances of that happening are no greater than a snowball's chance in hell. So I think if they stick to those conditions, and I'm sorry to be cynical about this, but Abu Abbas's administration has been in office for 16 years. They're in the 16th year of their 4-year elected term. And so I'm very skeptical that those conditions would be met.
And, you know, with Donald Trump's post saying, wow, Canada has just announced that it is backing statehood for Palestine, that will make it very hard for us to make a trade deal with them. Oh, Canada. This actually gives the Canadian media the perfect opportunity to have a look over there tactic. You are calculating to set up Donald Trump as the villain because, see, Donald Trump is punishing Canada now because we're standing up for human rights. So this really just allows for Carney to continue to rally the progressive base who have no idea what they're talking about, paint the conservatives as pro-Trump, and frame any economic fallout as worth it in the name of social justice. And despite the slew of comments, I'm sure, of people saying, oh, you're just a Zionist, you're an Islamophobe, I am a terror-ophobe, in fact. And yeah, you know what? I don't agree with governments like that. And there have absolutely been things that Israel has done in recent years, as well as throughout history, that I don't agree with either, because I have common sense. And sometimes it's not about right or left. It's just about right or wrong. And in this case, this is literally a fantasy that doesn't work, that has never worked, and it also isn't what the pro-Palestine people have been chanting on our streets that they want. They don't want a two-state solution. That's been very, very clear. Why the hell are you even talking about that right now, Mr. Carney, when you have a deal to make on behalf of Canadians? Why the hell do you care? Why the hell have people protesting on our streets, breaking windows, lighting cars on fire, all in the name of social justice causes that are total bullshit? Why are they allowed to get off scot-free every single time?
But rather than admit that they were wrong about all those things, they're going scorched earth, and they're going to completely continue to destroy our economy so that they can blame Donald Trump. That's what they're going to do. They got a boogeyman next door, and they're going to blame Donald Trump. So everything, they're going to continue down this terrible path just to spite themselves so that they can blame Donald Trump. Meanwhile, we're going to sit here as Canadians and we're going to watch Donald Trump lower their interest rate, kickstart their economy to a level that we've never, ever seen before. It's going to be glorious for the Americans. And they're going to go this way, and we're going to go down this way. And we're going to blame Donald Trump for our woes. That's what the Liberals are doing. There's no other explanation, folks.
And while they sit there, the mainstream media, government-funded, operated government messaging, while they sit there and tell you how, oh, conservatives and Donald Trump are so scary and bad, they're also the same guys receiving over $100,000 to publish Chinese state media propaganda. Remember the Chinese state media who interfered in our election several times, of which the Liberals did nothing about because they love democracy so much, who even interfered in it during the Liberal leadership race, targeting Chrystia Freeland to boost Mark Carney, and then during the election to boost Mark Carney, of which they all framed very differently too, that Mark Carney was a target. Nope, he was helped. He was absolutely helped. And it has come out due to several North American news agencies that received large checks in exchange for publishing Chinese state media propaganda. This is from a disclosure that was found with the U.S. Justice Department, and it turns out that Canada's Globe and Mail, who, by the way, funds the Century Initiative under Mark Wiseman, Mark Carney's advisor, received over $132,000 for a number of advertising campaigns that featured flattering coverage of China. And you wonder why so many Canadians are actually okay with the idea that rather than be with a country, be partnered and closely aligned with a country that shares our values, that shares our morals, that shares our border, that is democratic, even if you don't like the current president, that they would rather screw that and align closer to China. Well, it's because psyops work over time. That slow drip effect works. That's why the Chinese Communist Party would be wanting to infiltrate Canada and influence the minds of Canadians by doing this. It's why, for the last several years, our government has been slowly painting Donald Trump as this villainous enemy.
Strategic. And of course, the biggest lesson for Canada is that we also have to have a hard look at ourselves, our economy, the way our federation works, our position in the world. This is really a moment where we have to have a very hard look at how we have been operating as a country to be able to do the changes we need to do so that we can better deal with this, but also have more autonomy and better defend our interests.
Now, we thought we were being strategic, at least the federal government did, by using retaliatory tariffs. But the American economy is doing really well. The American consumer is, for the most part, not feeling the pain of counter tariffs. I look at GM, lost $1 billion in the last quarter, and yet never raised the price of an automobile because they're worried, presumably, that the president will tweet about them. We'll get out on social media about them.
And sure, Donald Trump is not perfect. I don't particularly like this tariff situation right now, but do you want to know what I dislike about it the most? It's our own government and their failures and putting us in this situation to begin with. A situation former Prime Minister Stephen Harper was trying actively to get Canada away from. So many years ago, way before Donald Trump ever even came into the picture, and yet the Liberals want to vilify the Conservatives and Harper so very much. He is to blame for everything that they've had a decade to fix and just never did, but continued to blame him anyway, even though they are actively speaking with him right now to try to figure out what the heck they are going to do, because we are so screwed, not by Donald Trump, by our own inaction of our government, by our own failure to be diplomatic, because a lot of liberals, and I'm sorry because I know my grandpa watches this show, I love you, but a lot of liberals are really mean. They're really mean, egotistical, prideful for no reason people who claim to be so tolerant, but are actually incredibly intolerant and have zero diversity of thought or opinion and are really angry. They're really angry people who, outside of the age-old liberals who are still following what they believe is the old Liberal Party, which it is not. The Liberal Party of today is not the Liberal Party of the 1980s. I'll tell you that much. That is very, very clear. It is a very different party today. And so outside of those people who are just uninformed, and so they think it's the same, but it's not the same anymore, they're just people who want to win. Like, they're weird people who don't have a lot of meaning in their life, and they just want to win. They want to feel better than anybody else. They want to be morally superior, and that is exactly why Global News would write this article about extremist influencers weaponizing femininity. This is a report, by the way, from CSIS. This is what CSIS is working on right now. And to give you a brief summary of it, this is a new intelligence report that claims extremist actors are weaponizing femininity to promote radical ideologies. Wow, crazy that wearing an apron, cooking for your family, cleaning your house is now a threat of far-right messaging that are harder to detect, according to all of this, because they say that these women are creating soft entry points into extremist ideologies, using fitness, parenting, beauty content, and even homemaking to wrap dangerous ideas in appealing packages. They're calling it soft propaganda. And while this report doesn't name any creators, because that would be a lawsuit in the making, it clearly targets conservative-leaning female creators who challenge state narratives using a mix of lifestyle and ideology. Do you want to know some of the key quotes from this article? Traditional gender roles have become a gateway to far-right radicalization. Wow. It makes these ideologies seem normal, relatable, and less threatening. And also that extremists are exploiting women's platforms that blend homemaking with anti-government or conspiratorial messaging. So yes, you heard it from the Canadian intelligence themselves that homemakers are now a threat. Yeah, they are literally saying that women who post about sharing sourdough recipes and maybe questioning why it costs so much for those ingredients might be radicalizing people. So we went from women empowerment to you might be a domestic terrorist if you bake bread and talk politics. And worse, it's not even the messaging that they fear, it's that it's coming from pretty and relatable, persuasive women who aren't under their control. So apparently, if you post beauty trends and tutorials, and you also think that our government is a freaking mess, because it is statistically on every single scale, because it's pretty crazy that our GDP per capita is like dead last amongst all G7 countries, or it's like second to dead last, whatever. Either way, it's really bad. You know, that you're radicalizing the nation. Apparently, thinking for yourself, following data, reading, knowing what's happening, being aware is a threat to society. And it's not the far left, which nobody talks about, even though the far left has been in control in Western nations for so freaking long. It's only the far right. Oh, yes, yes, yes. You have to believe in what we tell you to believe in. You have to toe the line. Otherwise, you're a danger. Like, do you not understand yet? Do you see it yet? How unbelievably controlled the machine is. The grip that it has on our country, on other countries. This report is nothing more than state-backed ideological warfare. It is targeting women who dare to be traditional because it makes them happy or they like it, who dare to be outspoken, who maybe make a lot of sense and are therefore kind of persuasive. And it is an absolute insult to the real victims of extremism, such as those whom our government just supported and called for more of. And it's also a terrifying look on how intelligence agencies are being weaponized against regular people. And on that note, I'm Jasmine Lane. I love American Eagle jeans. I've been wearing them for many years. In fact, their sister company, Aerie, is also where I get all of my swimwear from. Most of my shirts, including this one I'm wearing right now. And I guess that makes me an extremist. Sorry for the soft propaganda, my friends. I will talk to you tomorrow. Until then, subscribe, like, share, comment your thoughts down below. God bless. And let's pray for the people that are really hurting right now, because it sounds like there's a lot of them. And most importantly, keep up the good fight. I am right here with you. We don't need to insult. We don't need to be super cruel and mean. It's normal if that slips up every once in a while, but in the battle of good and evil, good always wins. It just takes a little while, because evil has such a hold on so many people.